Okay, let's go. This is going to be exciting. I'm excited. So one of my more previous videos, I discussed the change in my plans. Was going to plan to run the Dayton Audio drivers. But because of finding these on sale for basically 50% off, substantial savings, super excited. Got them in, let's check it out. They shipped me one of their banners, and that's like a 5 foot by 3 foot banner. That's a big banner. They shipped it with these drivers. That's awesome. I'm super excited about that. I am not typically a huge fan of green, but I don't hate green. And the way that SoundQubed does green, it's cool. I'm definitely a fan of that. Why they shipped me this banner with these drivers, this is super cool. I don't know what they charge, $30, $40 for the banners. They are for sale on their website, but that's cool. I hope to have that in the background of all my content just to support what they're doing. I'm a fan of their products. I'm not against them. I definitely am taking advantage of the product because of the deal that I got. Let's take a look at the drivers a little bit here. First thing that I would maybe comment on is the surround is definitely not a mega roll, not a high roll. It's actually smaller than I've seen on most 18s. This driver claims to have a viable X-Max, as their TS parameters suggest, of 30 millimeters for one-way linear excursion. I'd like to think that we're going to be right at the upper limits of what this surround can do, but I don't like having more surround than is necessary. And the Ultimax driver by Dayton Audio, it looks like that's a 55 millimeter excursion driver. Like, that surround is massive. It looks cool, but I think that it's overkill. Maybe there's utility in it. I'm not sure if it was, if it is a hype tool that they used or if it's necessary. But if I do in fact get a viable, healthy 30 millimeters of excursion out of this driver, and the surround does not deform too badly, then I'll be really excited, because I just don't like when there's unnecessary content. So if this surround is capable of 30 millimeters of excursion without any drama, then perfect. It gives me tons of cone area, and that's a good thing. At a glance, it looks like most subwoofers would. Pulp paper compressed, instead of it being uncompressed on the back, which I think is an attractive look. This has got a compressed on both sides. It doesn't have any of the wavy uncompressed edges. It's fairly compressed. It's fine. I think it looks good. Feels very thick, reminiscent of a FI Audio BTL sub I had back in the day. The material is very similar. That BTL, I had a carbon cone dust cover on it, and so that is a difference here. I've heard a story that there's a what's the brand? American Bass. I don't know if it's the same driver or a very similar driver, that there's a SoundQubed and a American Bass driver that are almost identical. And one of the things that was noted was that the American Bass dust cover was soft compared to these AudioCubed units. And I will say that this unit is definitely hard, but it's not impenetrable. I can definitely deflect it. Will that have any effect on the driver's performance? Will it hold up to the amount of sound pressure I intend to put it through? I guess we'll find out. Cool thing that I did not know is that this does have dual separated spiders. They are not that far apart, but there is dual spiders, which is a similar design configuration to the Dayton Audio Ultimax driver. Maybe it's more common than I realize. Maybe everyone's doing it. They're just not advertising that it's a thing. I admit some level of ignorance there, but I do know at a minimum this driver has that, and that was one of the things I liked about the Dayton Audio driver. I think that it does increase your linearity. How much, I don't know, at least in theory. I do like it. The basket to these drivers are very open, very spacious. There's lots of opening. I think that's a good thing. It feels very sturdy. It feels solid. Very open. You can definitely see the coil very easily. Everything looks good. I'm excited. What else is noteworthy here? It looks like, I don't know, the lighting doesn't really reflect. It looks like that the spider assembly is bolted in. I do not know if it's a glue and bolt-in process. I do know that on SoundQubed's website, they do offer replacement soft parts for these drivers, which is a plus. Not that I intend to blow any up, but if that happened, it might be a cheaper option than buying completely new. I'm pretty positive that Dayton Audio is not offering that in their arsenal, so there's that. Yeah, I'm kind of excited. It's nice to see all these drivers together here. I'm going to probably not make a video, but at some point I might be able to talk about it. I'm going to take one of these drivers out and mock it up in the enclosure and mark the holes and do that for all 4 of the mounting locations of these drivers so that I can pilot drill some holes and then do the little square blocks to add material for the screws to attach to. I'm going to do that here in a little bit. I'm excited for that. But wanted to make a video. We got these in, and it's like super cool. This is gonna happen. This is coming together. This is probably what I feared to be one of the harder hurdles to get over, is the acquisition of the subwoofer drivers for this build. The second hardest thing is either going to be the battery bank or exactly what we're going to do for amplification. I have a down for sound amplifier that might be capable of generating enough power to move these. At least it would get me a start, right? If I've not talked about it in another video, the down for sound amp I have is a JP322, so it's a 2-channel amp. I'm using it as a sub amp in my truck at the moment, and it generates I'm able to get 119 volts rail voltage out of it. And currently with that Dayton Audio Ultimax sub in the truck, with impedance rise at the tune frequency of the enclosure, 22 hertz, I'm able to get 11 amps of current peak output, and I start to get voltage drop. So that's with voltage drop at about 11.5 volt, as read from the as read off the amplifier, and I guess the impedance rise gives me somewhere around 10-11 ohms of resistance at 11 amps of current at 119 volts. That's 1,400 watts to the driver. So that's running the amp at 4 ohms bridged, which it's stable at 2 ohms bridged. I believe these are dual 4-ohm voice coil, and I think, as I recall, having just done a brief calculation, I should be able to series parallel this group and achieve a 2-ohm static load, which I'll be able to run that amplifier bridged at 2 ohms, and that would get me the most current potential that amp is capable of generating. It's rated at, bridged, it's a 6,000 watt amplifier. If I need 1,200 watts by 4, if I need a hypothetical 4,800 watts, which most of the time you get away with more power than that. And so that 6,000 watt amp should actually be capable of supporting all of this, granted that I have the electrical foundation to supply the power for it. So it might actually get me pretty close to where we want to be. I still wish, I still like to get a much larger amplifier and run a higher impedance to keep the amp cool, keep me clean power, and have a higher efficiency percentage. But for now, I'm pretty sure that that's the amp we're going to at least start this build out with. So I have the subs, have the amp, and what I guess the next biggest hurdle is a matter of obviously completing the build, but getting a battery bank. Save up my pennies once I lick my wounds from this purchase and I can start working on the battery bank. I've still got to acquire, at minimum, some mid-range amplifiers. I'm going to figure out a way to run a DSP, whether it's Down for Sound DSP or a Dayton Audio DSP, something along those lines. Since I'm not starting with Dayton Audio, now I'm less inclined to try and run everything Dayton Audio, and I might just go with what makes the most sense, most convenient, and what I can get the best bang for my buck for. Therefore, this is going to be an amalgam of things. Having gotten this banner for free thrown in with these drivers, and me liking the aesthetic and the energy that I'm getting out of SoundQubed, I'm starting to generate a sense of bias. I really like that image. They gave me some lanyards too. Let's check them out real quick. They've got a sort of a graffiti style logo here. I don't know how well you can see that. That is cool. If I could figure out a way to generate that and get that printed on the side of that van I've got, my Thump Wagon might be a little bit greener than I had initially thought was going to happen. Let's see, what else we got for content. I still think I want to run a 10-inch driver in the doors because SoundQubed doesn't sell a 10-inch driver. Probably not going to run one. If when I'm ready to buy an amp and they've got some B stock amplifiers that I can afford, or if randomly they'll hook me up with some with more sale options or a sponsorship, that would be fun. I've never earned a sponsorship. I feel sponsored. It makes me feel really cool. You're going to see that banner in the back of every single video that I make. They are not sponsoring me today, but I think it's a cool logo, and it makes me feel cool. So here's to pretending, here's to dreaming that we're sponsored. What else do I want to talk about? Well, I got the video recording. Drivers look good. I'm excited. I don't know. They look exactly like their internet images. They look fine. The dust caps are a hair softer than I would prefer. Guess we'll see how they hold up. Their conical shape gives them structural integrity, and they'll probably be just fine. Yeah, I guess that's it for a video. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I will do one thing while I've got record and I'm in my room. I just recently acquired a book. So I've had this book on, let's look at all my books. Not all of my books, but my favorite books. So from here, going this direction, these are all my audio books and content. I have a carpentry book. I don't know. I bought that years ago, trying to learn how to be somewhat proficient with some woodworking tools. Basic mathematics. This is just good for basic trigonometry and geometry. This is the book I want to talk about. I picked up an electrical engineering book. This is, of all these books, this book probably goes over my head the most. I get lost in it more than anything. I get lost in this book too, but we'll talk about that. Picked this book up in an attempt to get some certification when I was aspiring to be an electrician. That's pretty straightforward. Fundamentals, electronics fundamentals. This is where I get any knowledge I think I have regarding electronic components, right? Resistors, capacitors, transistors, diodes, LEDs, electric motors, basic circuitry, Ohm's law, that kind of a thing. This is Loudspeaker Design Cookbook Edition 7. I believe there's Edition 8 out, but it's like $130. This book's still available for $40. This is a really good one. If you don't have it, you need it. Sound Reinforcement Handbook, produced by Yamaha. This is Pro Sound, but this has some of the best content I've ever read. This is probably where I first learned about Hoffman's Iron Law. It's got a lot of content about how your ears affect your experience, how the environment influences your experience. Tons of good content. So even if you're still just a car audio guy, this is gold in my opinion. I got the MECP certification book. This is just the basic. I think that there's advanced and then there's master. And for whatever reason, I stopped with the basic. It's on my list. This might be the least useful book, but this was one of the first books I ever bought, Live Sound Reinforcement. Picked this up in a Guitar Center, I believe. This book is probably the most misleading. The least accurate information exists here. And despite me maintaining it, I'm not necessarily that proud of this book. Then I have Master Handbook of Acoustics, and this book is top 2 or 3 books in my opinion. This book has lots of valuable content, and especially for home audio, some pro audio. But if you're looking at dealing with Room EQ Wizard, REW, and doing DSP modeling, there's a lot of very good content in here. And then I have the Bassbox Pro and Crossover Pro manuals. These have been very valuable to learn speaker box modeling software, and they've got tons of useful content. But even just design philosophy and methodologies, those 2 books have been valuable to me. Let's go back over here to this one though. Let's pull this guy out. This is, in my opinion, and I'm somewhat ignorant, so I don't know everything. This book, Theory, Performance, Testing, and Design on loudspeakers. This is my understanding that this is the OG book, and I think it's hard to come by. Until recently, I only possessed a digital copy because I had never found or looked that hard to find a paperback copy of this book. This is written in like the 30s or 40s. Let's see if it says quickly. It sold new originally for $2.25, so I believe that this is a fairly old book. I'm not sure. At least 1954 was when this book was copyrighted, 1960. Let's see, it says the new version published in 1960, the first edition published in 1934. So I had historically had my hands on a digital copy of the 1934 version, and I'm told that this 1960 edition is much more up to date. But this is more or less the OG, like, engineering book regarding loudspeakers. This is, and I'm not gonna lie, I get lost in it as well. There's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of complicated math, and by math I mean the kind of math that uses more Latin than anything. That's the kind of math that I get lost in. But as far as theory and design, this book is absolute gold. I'm excited to share about it because this is one of the nerdiest things I own and one of my favorite pieces of kit regarding sound design. I've read that book probably 3 times, and I only can understand about 20 or 30% of it because the rest of it's math, and they use math to explain why physics are the way they are and why things are the way they are. And because I struggle with some of that aspect of the math, some of it goes over my head, but they basically demonstrate how you can achieve the same thing electrically with capacitors, resistors, and inductors that you can with like fluid dynamics, and you can use some of fluid dynamics principles in sound using air as like the medium for a fluid transfer or molecular transfer of energy, flow of energy, if you will. And I thought that was really cool. So that book, man, I was super excited about that. I think that's a wrap on this video. These guys are going in the Thump Wagon build. Pretty excited about that. And yeah, until a later video.